welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We will do this training today on trade fair participation. The idea is really for me to go through the presentation, to explain the different key points, and then in the end, we will have a Q&A session, as Faith mentioned, where you can, maybe share your experience. If you have any particular question, we can look at it together. And do not worry in any case if you've missed something or if I've gone a little bit too fast on different points. We will share with you the recording and we will share with you also the presentation. So with that said, just to give you some background, so my name is Frederine Derlot. I work at ITC with Faith. My job, I'm agri-food specialist, and my job is to help exporters understand market requirements, train them on that, and understand and help them through trade fair participation in particular. Before joining ITC, I come from the private sector. I was an exporter, as you are, most of you. I was buying and selling agri-food in Europe for supermarkets. So trade fair participation is something that I have been exhibiting either with my previous company or through ITC for many times, and I visited trade fairs as an exhibitor, as a visitor, and also as a support through those project support we're providing to participants, to exporters like yourself. So I just want to spend, the next hour and a half together and share what I feel is some tips and also the main items that are the main points that will be useful for you when you are maybe you have exhibited before, maybe you are thinking of exhibiting. So we will look at those different points today together. First, to understand the differences in type of trade fairs, learning how to select the right one for you, for your company, and make sure to go through, what planning do I need to do? And when I am at the trade fair, what do I do? What do I don't do? And also we will briefly look at the follow-up. So we will start with, the basics. The basic is, are you ready to exhibit? And why do exporters companies attend a trade fair? And then we will look at the different type of trade fairs. So we all know in theory, attending a trade fair, you need to prepare, you need to be there in person, and then you need to do the follow-up. Attending a trade fair, exhibiting at a trade fair is quite a long process. It would take a few months to prepare properly. And I said in terms of level of efforts, let's say about a third of the effort is everything to do with preparation. A third is on site when you are there. And then a third is the follow-up that you need to do once you're back home. In terms of, those are, everybody wants to go to trade fairs, but the thing is, are you ready to do it? Are companies ready to exhibit? Those are some of the common challenges that sometimes we have companies that are doing very well on their domestic market, but maybe they're not ready to export. Maybe they don't understand what it takes to export. One of the main challenge really is about the volume. Do I have enough quantity in terms of quality also to be able to supply the export markets? So some of those are just main challenges. What you can do if you're not ready is you could visit a trade fair. If you hesitate in saying, I'm not sure the trade fair is the right one for me. Well, maybe because trade fair are usually yearly edition, every year or every 2 years for the big ones. You could go as a visitor. It would be cheaper than exhibiting, and then you could get a sense of, is it the right trade fair for me? Are my products going to be a good fit in terms of what the other exhibitors are showing here? So some of the objectives, if you go as a visitor, you can still learn a lot about a trade fair. And usually they have conferences at trade fairs you can attend, learn about the latest development on your sector, on your industry. Now, if you do want to say, okay, I want to participate, but I want to exhibit. Why do companies exhibit? Companies exhibit because they want to reach a new market. They want to find buyers, but not only. When you exhibit at a trade fair, you can see also what the competition is doing. You are meeting in one place under a limited amount of time, all, sector specialists and all similar exporters doing similar products. So it's not just about finding buyers, it's almost sometimes about finding investors, technical partners, input suppliers, and much more. So in terms of now, you have to understand that not all trade fairs are the same. Um, Obviously, not all trade fairs are the same, but the structure of the trade fairs are different. You have what we call the physical trade fair. So that's your typical trade fair, 4 days, 5 days. You travel, you go in person to the trade fair. So that's the traditional model, if you want. And then with the COVID years, we had more and more virtual element or online element of a trade fair. So during COVID, you had 100% virtual trade fair because people could not travel anymore. So the trade fair organizer created those 100% virtual trade fairs. Now, nowadays, you do find it depends on which part of the world, but you find those what we would call hybrid trade fairs, where most, let's say 90% of the people come in person, but you can still exhibit online through an app, through a B2B platform that the trade fair is organizing. So those are the three type of trade fairs you have. And then on top of it, you have different sizes of trade fairs or different market segment. You would have your national trade fair. If you are in the Gambia, for instance, then Trade Fair Gambia International would be your national trade fair. And then you would have more regional trade fair or international trade fair that has a wider amount of visitors, exhibitors, and the scope is bigger. And then you have trade fair that are specific to a particular sector. If you take the example in Biofach, Biofach is an organic trade fair in Germany, taking place every year in February. This is only for organic certified produce. In this case, if you don't have an organic certification to show, you need to show it when you register, you will not be able to exhibit. It's a unique case. The other trade fairs, you can exhibit with or without certification. Just this particular trade fair, because it's very sector specific. Now, what you have to think about, what is important to think about when you select a trade fair is to say, what do I want to do? Who is my, not just my target market, but my market segment. Do I sell my produce to B2B sector, like other companies, business to business? Or do I sell my produce to the end consumer, the supermarkets, for instance? So you have to make a choice because some trade fairs will not allow you to sell your produce. So you have to be careful about that when you select your trade fair. Now, let's have a quick look about those new virtual or hybrid trade fairs. How do they look like? What what to do? Obviously, this came, as I say, from COVID when nobody could travel. The trade fair organizers created those 100% online trade fair. So the business could still continue despite the difficulties of COVID. So if you are an exporter, then you have a choice. You need to choose. Do I want to exhibit in person to a trade fair, like picture on the left-hand side here, or do I want to exhibit virtually from, you know, your office back home? So if we look at the virtual trade fair or the hybrid trade fairs, the content of the trade fair is the same as a physical trade fair. You will find industry specialists, you will find people that will want you to sell inputs, you will find buyers. The difference, the big difference is that those B2B platforms, let's call them like that, organized by the trade fair, are the duration of those B2B platform are much longer than you have a trade fair that lasts 3 to 5 days, 5 days in general. Well, and then you go home and then you cannot have access to buyer information and so on. In this case, with the virtual one, the B2B platform goes on from up to 3 to 6 months after the end of the trade fair. You have to understand that every trade fair is different, but this is just to give you, some of the broad organization or the way they organize themselves. What is also very interesting in those virtual trade fairs is that you can have a much wider reach. Imagine you are exhibiting, you are from Ghana and you're exhibiting in Côte d'Ivoire, where there's a big international trade fair. The likelihood is you're going to meet buyers from Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, the regional market. But unlikely are you going to meet buyers from the US or Germany or so on. Well, through the virtual trade fair, that's not true anymore. So that's the big difference. So for instance, this is one of the vice president of Costco, who's a big US food giant. And he said we could never have all of our buyers at Costco to travel to an in-person event. But now every buyer of the team can check it online to see what's new, the innovative, every product category, and we can do it live during the event or 24/7 at our own convenience. So it shows here, this is the difference between being 5 day present physically somewhere, and this is the difference where you can have access to worldwide buyer network, basically. One of the key elements or key features from those virtual trade fairs is that every contact you make, the system, the artificial intelligence system behind the B2B platform will register it for you. So at the end of the trade fair, it will give you a list of all the people you've contacted and their full contact numbers and so on. So that's quite useful. Um, Obviously, we talked about a wider reach. You can reach buyers that are further away. And also, it is cheaper. It is a cheaper approach to trade fair participation than going there, paying for your travel and your flight and so on. So those are, the good reasons why we like those hybrid virtual trade events. They increase your reach. You can showcase your product, um, your company to a much wider audience. However, those are good reasons we don't like virtual trade fairs. What is important is to know that, sometimes if you are attending a virtual trade fair, maybe the time difference is going to be very important. You're going to have to wake up in the middle of the night to talk to buyers because the time difference is very big. And still, if you have internet connection problems, that can be an issue. So, and then it's not replacing the face-to-face, kind of interaction you have at a traditional trade fair. But they exist, and I wanted to, mention that to you to show you maybe they don't exist in the current trade fair you've been, but they will. In Europe now it's very common. In Africa, it depends on the trade fair. So just a little note of saying let's pay attention to that. Because those virtual trade fairs gives you the opportunity to meet buyers from all over the world. The question is, can I export my fresh produce? I know you mostly do process, but I just wanted to um, flag this issue. Can I export my fresh produce anywhere in the world? The answer is no. The answer is no because for fresh produce, there has to be a phytosanitary agreement between your Ministry of Agriculture and some of the importing countries. I'll give you an example. If you want to export pineapple from Benin, pineapple from Ghana, you can export to the EU. They don't have those kind of requirements. They have other ones, but not these ones. You can include export to the Middle East, but you cannot export to the US. Below here on the slide is an example for Ghana. Ghana can export fresh cassava to the US because this agreement is in place. And those agreements are in place for each product. But they cannot export mango because fresh mango from Ghana cannot be exported to the US. So it's just a little additional information, but be careful if you get requests from a buyer very far away, you have to pay attention to that if you are exporting fresh fruits and vegetables, for instance. Now, in practice, how do they look like, those virtual trade fair? Well, you have the same principle as a normal trade fair. You have a booth, but this one is a virtual booth where you can add pictures and videos of your product. Then you have what they also call it show floor, but it's the same thing, basically. And then you have networking tools. Or where you can talk with buyers on the left-hand side here. And then you have conferences where you would hear experts about your sector. So similar to a traditional trade fair, here on the left, you have the physical, you are there in person for the conference. Here on the right, it is a virtual one like we're doing today. this is what we have. This is the model that we know, traditional trade fair. That was the last trade fair we did before COVID, with a delegation of from Kenya. And then COVID hit, and this is the same thing virtually. In June 2020, we did our first 100% virtual trade fair. If I was a buyer and I wanted to know and I wanted to buy products from Kenya, here we had 4 countries, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, Tanzania. I would click on the country and then I would see individual, information on the different companies. In terms of those, what they call the networking sessions on how you talk to buyers, this is what we are used to, trade fair participation. You're there in person. This is what they call group chats or one-to-one. So depending on the trade fair, this is quite a bad example. That was at the beginning, and now they have improved it. This is what a B2B online session would look like. So you would be connecting and similar to a Zoom meeting and so on. Now, we looked at the different Y exhibit, the different type of trade fairs, industry specific, online, in person, and so on. Now, the question is, how do I select the right trade fair for my company, for my product, for my sector? There are thousands of trade fair, and you have to consider different factors. As I say, some are B2B trade fairs, some you can sell your products. What are the costs? Who is the target market? What export market do they cover? So if you want to look for a trade fair, you have different ways of doing it. You can do it through Google. You can do it maybe your customers, your suppliers, your competitors have told you about trade fair. Or you can, this is an example where you find online, those are reference sites. So imagine you want to look for a trade fair in Côte d'Ivoire or in Ghana, you would type Ghana agro-food, and this will give you all the trade fairs in Ghana on agro-food. So now you have this list of maybe 4 to 5 trade fairs that you're interested in. But which one is the right one for you, for your company? You have to look into the trade fair organizer website. They have those informations. Those information will tell you, for instance, this is a trade fair in Italy. If you want to sell your product, and obviously you see here the breakdown in terms of the origin of the visitor. So for instance, if the regional market, North Africa, sub-Saharan countries are your main target, you can see that only 12% of visitors come from this part of the world. So this is not the right one. And then you say, okay, I want to go to Europe. This trade fair has 37% of visitors coming from Europe. Why not? But then you have to go further. Those are information you can find on the site also, on the site of the trade fair organizers. And you can see that from those, they will give you great numbers. They will tell you 40,000 visitors, 20,000 visitors. Okay, but from those 20,000 visitors, how many matter to me? If I want to find, if I want to exhibit my produce, then you can see that in this particular trade fair, less than 40% do that. Less than 40% are people exhibiting their produce. The rest is about equipment and machinery and so on. So be mindful about that. Have a look at where the people are coming from, but also what is their role and what do they sell. Now, if we want to compare costs, because it all comes down to costs and how much does it cost, trade fair participation is an expensive business, uh, but you have to understand that every trade fair do their own pricing, basically. This is what a typical cost breakdown looks like. If you're going to a physical trade fair, you're gonna have to spend on booth space, booth construction, on travel and hotel for you, on sending your promotional materials, your samples, and so on. Now, okay, then if you do it virtually, for instance, how much does it cost? It's not cheap, but it's cheaper. It depends on your organization. So, for instance, these are some of the lead trade fairs in Europe for agri-food, some for fresh produce, agri-food, some for processed. And what they call an exhibitor is one company. So if you are one company, you pay 2,000 euros, then you will have access and you will be exhibiting online as if you were on site. That's what the offering is about. Now, this is to give you an idea of prices to exhibit. Depending on the size of the stand, this is space plus construction of your stand. And you can see the prices are very different according to the trade fair you choose. I have another example for African trade fairs. If you are going as a single company, one company, this is how much it would cost you. For instance, Anuga is a lead agri-food trade fair in Germany. Um, and you can see how much it would cost you if you go in person or if you choose the online option. It's a different picture, so it's cheaper online. It's a different picture almost if you do have a group of companies. Imagine you are a sector association or you are an export promotion agency. Price can and cost can go up very, very quickly in both cases. To give you an example of how much it costs for some African trade fairs, this is the cost for space only here. We have not built anything on top of it. You need to add the cost of construction. So big differences in price, just like in Europe and other part of the world. If you exhibit at the Fiara Senegal, it's much more reasonable than Food Africa in Cairo, and then the International Agri-Food Trade Fair in Morocco. So, as I say, every trade fair do their own prices. You have to check how much it will cost, how much it will cost to buy a booth space, and how much it will cost to construct a stand on it also. Now, you've selected your trade fairs. What do I need to do? You know, what choice do I need to make? Well, first, you need to decide, do I go as a company on my own? I have my own individual stand, like on the right-hand side here at the bottom, or do I go as a group? Maybe my export promotion agency is organizing trade fair participation, and I can have one desk to showcase my product. Uh, this is the same question whether you do a virtual trade fair. On the left-hand side, it's a group pavilion virtually. And on the right-hand side, it's on individual stand virtually also. Now, if you are a sector association, if you are an export promotion agency, you want to help, you are supporting a group of exporters. So you have a group pavilion. Now, the important thing is to showcase not only your companies that are coming, but also your sector. the name of your country. This is an example we did in the past on avocado sector in Kenya, and we were provided those to buyers at the trade fair because you know your country, you know your sector, you know how important it is, but some of the buyers may not know. So it's good professionalism approach to, showcase your company, but tell them, the sector is important, it's growing, and so on. Um, if you are a sector association, then obviously what you want to do is like individual, you want to create flyers from promotion and individual, let's say one pager, one page equal one exporter. This is an example that we did for Kenya. Um, and then you can have those printed catalogs during the trade fair, or nowadays you can have them, through a QR code to save you some money on bringing the catalog. Uh, Remember that nowadays the first thing that a buyer will do is they will test and they will check the information provided through social media. They will go on your website, they will go on your Facebook, LinkedIn, and they will want to check if what information they have is the same and if it makes sense. If you are describing a company in a certain way in your brochure, and then you have a totally different description or totally different design or produce on your website, as a buyer, as a former buyer, it's a little bit of alarm bells to me. So be mindful. Social media nowadays, that's one of the ways that the buyers, they are the first thing they're going to do. If they don't know you, they're going to check you out online. Now, if you are a group pavilion organizer, my advice would be really, because every trade fair is different and every online virtual B2B platform is different, is really to train your members on the specificities of that particular platform. And because it's needed for every trade fair, because as I say, they all have different models, different ways of doing things. Okay, so now you have decided on a trade fair. You've decided on a booth. Is it a group one? Is it an individual one? What's next? Well, what's next is about first understanding on who's doing what. Who's doing what? On the left-hand side here, it's your company. And on the right-hand side here, it's the trade fair organizers. Because different people from your companies are going to interact with different people from the trade fair organizers. Your finance department, their invoicing department will talk together. Your senior management, your salesperson will talk with the trade fair organizers to organize the stands, the look, and so on. So you have to identify who's going to do what within your company. Maybe it's the same person, maybe it's 2 or 3 person. And then let's start by saying, okay, you have your team or you've decided on going to a trade fair. First thing is, as we said, you look at the objectives, you look at your goals. Is it the right trade fair for me? Is it the right trade fair for my product? You have every trade fairs have exhibitor catalogs. Go and check out the exhibitor catalogs from the year before to see who was there. Now, next thing you need to do once you've decided is budget. This is an example of a real budget on the right-hand side of a company going to Ciel Paris 2 years ago. Obviously, those prices are very expensive because Ciel is one of the most expensive trade fair. But you have a breakdown here. It's not just about the space and the construction. The trade fair organizers will add a lot of little costs on top of it. Electricity, water. You want to have a TV on your stand. You need to pay for that. You want to have chairs. You need to pay for that. So work out, the costs. It's very important. Once you want to do the booking, basically it depends on the trade fair. Some trade fair, like here on the left-hand side, you can do it on site, online. Be mindful about the timing. If you book really late, maybe there's not going to be availability anymore. And then you will have poor choices of stand location, for instance. So usually some of those big trade fairs, they run every 2 years, and their registration open a year and a half before the trade fair. So we're in 2024. There will be a SIAL Paris this year. The registration open at the end of 2022. So if you come now and you say, I want to exhibit at SIAL, you're going to have less good spots or less availability than if you did it when the registration opened. And again, sometimes the trade fair organizer will give you a discounted price if you book early. Or you have the traditional way, like this is one for Fiara in Senegal, where you just fill in the form and you send it back to the organizer. Whatever way is required, it's quite easy. You will tell how much space you need and the kind of booth you want. Is it a 3-side open? Is it a 4-side open? Is it a corner one? This is one of the main things you need to think about. The trade fairs will give you choices. They will give you on the left-hand side, it's what they call the ready-build stand. You buy the space and you buy the ready-build stands. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to find a stand constructor. On the right-hand side, this is an example we did for Kenya. The design is different and is much more advanced. So we had different requirements. We had a delegation of 20 companies, for instance. So you can either choose the stand constructor, the official stand constructor from the event. Usually they're more expensive. Or you can choose your own stand constructor. They need to be accredited to build on that particular trade fair. That's the only thing. But you have a choice. For instance, they give you, depending on the fair, they give you the choice, left-hand side here, the basic stand is cheaper than the classic and so on. So you have the choice of how you want to build it. Now, my advice is really when you talk about when we talk about construction, we need to talk about design, the graphic design. You have to be very clear about it. In terms of any guess, what these stands are selling, what these companies are selling. You have to have a clear message. The company on the left, not sure, to be honest. For me, it's like maybe a sports company or something like that. The company on the right, it's chicken. But then, it's really elaborate just to sell the graphics are a little bit odd. So you have to understand the company on the left is actually selling firewall against piracy on your computer. So, but if you don't know the brand, you don't know what they're selling for. So when you choose your graphic design, the way your stand will look like, make it as simple as possible. Put your name of your country. Your flag is not enough. You know your country flag. When you have international buyers, they may not know your country flag. And then here an example, you understand straight away. You see the stand, and you know it's about Kenya. It's about avocado and peas. So we call it every walk-in. Every person that walk into the room needs to understand straight away what you're selling. This is an example of the opposite, basically. And always use English. Whatever place you go, the slogan, the information should be in English. This is in Germany. So they have written their slogan in German. And there's no clear, it's not clear to me what this company is selling. So very important. Um, One of the things that can help you is this kind of small decision tree. And then this is from a trade fair in Asia. Well, it will guide you, you know. Is your company a startup? Yes, no. Yes, they have specific in that particular trade fair location for startup companies. Are you going as a group? Yes, no. Is your booth going to be above a certain size? Then it gives you, you know, it guides you into that decision process. And when we talked about early booking when possible, huh? Only when possible. Why is it important? It's important here. Once you've booked, the trade fair organizer will send you what they call the placement offer. So on the on the left-hand side here in the green frame, this company at source received their placement offer. They booked a stand and you need to check. Don't say yes without checking. You need to check. Who are your neighbors? Are they direct competitors? Are you well located within the hall? Are you next to the toilets or are you next to the main entrance where you're going to have a lot of foot traffic? And as early as you book, if you book really at the end and there is almost no availability, then you're going to be stuck with whatever they give you. But then if you book early, then you can always go back to them and say, you know, I prefer another location. Location is important. Let me give you an example. This is one of the last trade fair I attended. This company, Lineage, who I don't even know what they do, to be honest. It's not very clear to me. Had the unfortunate location next to, on the left-hand side here, there is a stand that was giving free food. So all the people I've put in that yellow circle are queuing to get those free food. So that Lineage stand was completely empty. No one could, they had very poor visibility and they paid thousands of dollars to have that that was a 4 day. And during the 4 days of the fair, that was exactly like that all the time. So hence, location is important. When you choose graphic design, the idea is build as high as possible. So when you are in a room, you enter a hall with 10,000 people. If you look up and you can see what you're looking for straight away, that will give you better visibility as a buyer. I mean, for an exporter, the buyer will come, they will look up, they will see Kenya. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. So build as high as possible. If you are an exporter, you can still stand out from a group pavilion. This is an example we did in the past for Senegalese mango. You have your individual desk or individual corner. You can still, you know, showcase your product. Now, you have decided on the type of stand that you want, the trade fair, obviously. Now, watch out for what they call mandatory suppliers or mandatory stand constructor. The trade fair organizers will tell you if you want electricity and your stand, you must go through us. If you want water, you must go through us. So for those, you cannot get a better price. You have to pay the price of those mandatory suppliers. But and then you have the what I would call the nice to have, you know. There is no obligation, absolutely no obligation whatsoever. But if you want some animation, some decoration, some food. Um, if you need a TV because you want to show a picture of your company, of a video of your company, you need to uh, organize that in advance. If you need a fridge, if you need a cooking stove, if you need a freezer, you need to organize that and in advance with the trade fair organizer. I mean, one of the best ways always, the testing session to attract foot traffic to your stand. You can do it as simple as possible, but you need to plan ahead and you need to think on how many samples do I need to bring to be able to do that. And then you have trade fairs where people, again, have nice to haves. They hand out some free candies, little pens, little things like that. They're okay. There's a cost to it. Is it worth it? You should ask yourself that. Um, my advice would be if you have those kind of things, only give it to actual potential buyers because people will come and they will take them. And then when you meet an actual buyer, maybe you would have run out. So be careful. Um, what the trade fair organizer are going to offer to you is publicity, sponsoring, showcasing your company, showcasing your sector. And I mean, they have a good imagination. Here on the right-hand side, they even do publicity in the toilets. In the middle, it's a publicity for a brand. And on the left-hand side, it's more publicity for a sector. So again, they will give you opportunities to showcase your sector, your company. Usually they are very expensive, depending on the fair. Is it worth it? That's for you to decide. Now, let's say we are 6 months before the event. What do I need to do? Well, you need to start organizing your trip. Do you need a visa to travel to that particular country? If you need a visa, the trade fair organizer will provide you with a letter that will saying that you will be exhibitor and that will facilitate your for you to get a visa, for instance. Obviously, you need to check out the flights, you need to check out your hotels, and then you need to start thinking about promoting your participation to the trade show. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can do it for free with a little bit of legwork. You can do it on social media. Um, any social media is good. Any free publicity is good. If you are used to using Facebook and you must have a company Facebook page, not your own personal Facebook page. If you're using LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. Any publicity is good. The trade fair will give you, those are some we've created ourselves for past participation, but the trade fair sometimes will also create little email signature. So you can just add it at the bottom of your every email you send 2 months before the fair, so people knows that you're going there. We talk about graphic design 6 months before the fair, 3, 4 months before the fair. You need to think about your graphic design. Don't do like that, like this company here. Oh, we'll do it ourselves. It will be fine. It's not fine. It looks horrible. Again, this is an example from 2 months ago at a trade fair. What a waste of money. They've paid $10,000, $20,000 to come here, to come to that trade fair. There's nobody at the stand, no product, no graphics. We don't know what they're selling. So simple graphics can be, effective. This is an example we did for Ukraine. This is a physical stand at a physical trade fair. This is a virtual stand, similar. So a few good pictures, some colors, some information about your product. It does the trick. It doesn't have to be very complicated. 2 to 3 months before the trade fair, you need to sort out tickets. Does your trade fair give you free visitor tickets? If so, give those to your buyers, not to someone that's not related to the business, to buyers, to potential buyers, existing buyers, potential buyers. They can come and they can meet you at the stand and they can see your product. Um, Follow, social media nowadays. You can get a lot of information out of it. Follow your buyers, follow the companies you're interested to sell to. This is an example because you use social media to showcase your company, but the buyers use it too. On the left-hand side here, it's Köhler. It's a Swiss company going to one of the lead trade fair. They posted that. Very fun, very good, but it's good information for you because there you have all the names of all their buyers going to that trade fair. On the right-hand side, this Mr. Van Rijzen is a Dutch importer buying exotic fruits from Africa. And here he gives you, he say, can't wait to meet you, how to get in touch. He gives you his telephone number and even his email. Another example here, this is a whole team going to a trade fair. And then if you follow them on LinkedIn, you know who's doing what, who's the mango buyer, who's the avocado buyer, who's the meat buyer, and so on. So don't build your network on social media. It is useful. You see it here in practice. It works. And also, when we talk about promotional material, every trade fair will give you what they call this for you to fill in this exhibitor profile. So this is an example of an exhibitor profile. It means that because you are registered to go to the trade fair, if I'm a buyer and I go online, I can find you. So this exhibitor profile is very important. Usually companies put the minimum information. They should not. This is not a very good example. There's very limited information. This is what the competition looks like. This is an exhibitor profile, and you can add videos, you can put links to your website, you can put photos to your product range and so on, contacts. So this is a good example. So don't dismiss too fast that exhibitor profile. It's a very important part of trade fair participation. And then you need to think about stand decoration. What do I put on my stand? What do I bring? Those are example of, promotional posts you see online. They can be very simple. I've taken a few pictures here. I've put it on my LinkedIn. It's just saying, we're going to be there. Come and meet us. This is where we can find us. So it does not have to be complicated. In terms of the promotional material, you need to prepare for the trade fairs, be professional, make sure you take good quality business cards, not just talking about the paper. If you like here on the right-hand side at the top, if you have a red business card with white font, nobody can read it, basically. So this is an example of a well-balanced business card. You have the logo, the name of the company, you have the contact, the telephone and international code, and then you have a QR code that goes back to your company. QR codes nowadays are everywhere. They're very useful and they are free to create online. Very simple. So also look professional, act professional. If I have a coconut oil company, and my name is Frederine, it does not look very professional if I give to the buyers my email saying Frederine123plus@gmail.com. No. If you have a company name, ideally you would create different kind of emails. Sales, Frederine@coconutoil.com, Frederine@coconutoil.com. Contact, inquiry, export department. Break it down, but don't give your personal email for sure. It's free. You create a quick, professional looking email. If you don't have your domain name, you can still put, contact coconutoil@gmail.com, inquiry, contact oil, etc., etc. But make sure that whatever email you give looks professional. It doesn't look like, it's John 1978 because you were born in 1978. That's for personal life, not professional life. You want to find out the actual logistics of your event. Where is it located? How do I get there? Do I take a taxi? Where's my hotel? 6 weeks before the event, you need to think about the samples. Samples are always a bit tricky because it's quite difficult sometimes to bring them with you. Check with the airlines, check the export documents. Do I need a certificate of origin? Do I need a phytosanitary document? Sometimes some of the trade fairs will support you. They will have professional freight forwarding company, but it's an extra cost. And you need to plan well in advance to be able to ship samples that will get there directly. So have a think about it. Don't leave it too late. And make sure you have the right paperwork, because otherwise the risk is you are going to take the flight and your samples are not. Another important item to think about is pick the right staff to go at the stand with you, to be at the stand with you. If you're taking 2 person, that's fine. Don't take 3, 4, 5. 2 is fine. So you can be at the booth while the other person can check out the competition, can go to conferences and so on. But whoever you pick needs to be knowledgeable about your company, your product, your process, because they need to be able to answer technical questions. Don't take your accountant because he does not know anything about the B2B business. Take maybe a salesperson and a technical person. So have a think also about who you're going to take to a trade fair. Now, coming up to the event, okay, things are speeding up a little bit. You are saying, okay, what do I need to do? Well, you need to have all the logistics, your passport, your visa, your videos of the companies. It's always good nowadays to take a short videos of your process, of your companies, of your product, if you cannot bring them all with you. You need to have your sales page ready. You need to know your prices, your export prices. You need to be knowledgeable about your company. As I say, if you take 2 staff, make sure that the second staff is trained. It can answer those questions. Those are the typical buyer questions you are going to get when going abroad to a trade fair. If you are processors, like you are here, you will get additional questions on your processing. What are your capacities? What kind of equipment do you use? What are your lead time? And so on and so on. So you should be prepared to answer those questions, and your second representative, if you're taking one, should be prepared also. In terms of the little things, if you want to organize testing session, bring some, small plates, napkins, and so on. Your brochures, staple your business card to your brochure in advance. Nowadays, as I say, QR code is the magic solution, because after 3 days at a trade fair, usually we don't have business cards anymore. We don't have brochures because we have given away everything. Nowadays, with QR code, you can still, in a professional manner, provide your contact, your product information through the QR code. To give you some example, this is a stand from Chile. They went all in. They went extreme into QR codes mode. There was no brochure, no business card, no name of companies on their big stand. There was just QR code. I'm not saying you should do 100% that. I'm saying that this is a good way to combine with your brochures and your business cards. If you are doing those virtual events like we're doing now, obviously you want to check that you don't have any computer problem before you are going to talk with your buyer online. You want to have a professional look. Don't don't have your Zoom meeting in the car or in a very noisy environment. Try to be in a quiet place where you can talk to the buyers. In terms of the event in itself, so during the event, one of the main things during the event is how do I capture, how do I keep the information? You are going to meet dozens of people. There's no way that on day 4 of the trade fair, you remember what was discussed on day 1. So you need to write it down. You need to capture this information to go back to it once the trade fair is over. So you can do it very simply, in your notebook, you staple the business card and you write your notes. We can do it also. Sometimes we have some brochures or one pager to help you with that. Otherwise, some of those trade fairs that have this app nowadays or B2B element, the visitors or the exhibitors, they have a QR code. So basically, when you meet someone, you just flash and you scan their QR code. And at the end of the trade fair said, we will send you a list of all the people you've met. Yes and no, because it's not 100% proof. So my advice would be really write it down and you can go back to it, because if you do only scanning with the app and the app does not work, then you've left with nothing. In terms of one of the questions I get is, what do I wear? Do I wear my traditional costume, my traditional clothes at a trade fair? Yes, you can. Usually on day 1 of a trade fair, when you have your ambassador maybe coming to visit the stand, um, you can wear your traditional clothes. Do I wear a uniform? Well, you can. If it looks like on the right-hand side here, on the top corner, the blue uniform, if it looks like those very weird looking purple guys, not so much. So whatever you choose, you have to make sure that if it depends on the country it's held. If it's, for instance, in Europe, where the business culture is quite formal, maybe a suit and a tie. It depends on the country. And also, whatever you choose, just be comfortable, because days are very long at trade fairs. So you have to be comfortable. In terms of what to do during the fair, now the idea is you have done all this publicity before the fair, you have talked to your buyers, you have talked to your prospects, you have set meetings, organized meetings during those 4 or 5 days. It's always good practice to send a quick email the day before to say, we have a meeting tomorrow, to reconfirm the meeting and the place. It's so easy to lose time in trade fairs. So many people, so many things to see. So that's a good practice to do. What you need to realize is at trade fairs, you will not meet only buyers. You will meet people that will want to sell you things. You're going to meet sales force from input suppliers, machinery suppliers, other trade fairs that will want to go for you to exhibit at the other trade fairs, the press, whatever. So you have to, basically, you have to know when to cut short a conversation because your time is precious. The buyer's time are precious, but your time is precious. So you don't want to spend 1 hour talking to input supplier. You can have that discussion with the input supplier, but after the trade fair. You give your contact, you say, we will talk after. Um, be mindful, pay attention to details. To assess how serious a buyer is, listen to the question they're asking. If that person does not know your company and wants to buy 10 containers right away, be mindful. If they don't have product specification to provide to you about what they want, be careful. Payment terms, again, don't take any risk. Export is a risky business. It's a costly business when it goes wrong. So you have to pay attention to the questions. If the buyer tells you, oh, but you're from Ghana, and then he says, I've been buying from Ghana for the past 10 years, you're like, fair enough. Ask him questions. Where did you buy? What region? What's the logistic? How many days did it take by lorry or by truck or whatever? And then if the guy does not know, then again, be careful. So that's, one of the key points. What's not to do during trade fairs? It sounds like common sense, but sometimes you would be surprised. Um, Pay attention, don't be like this guy looking at his phone. Pay attention to the foot traffic. Don't leave any dirty whatever on the table. Just make them clean, professional. You've paid a lot of money to be there for a limited amount of time, so make most of it. Um, I'm sorry for the colleagues from Ghana, but this is an example from Ghana stand. This stand is huge every year at the same trade fair. They pay thousands of dollars for having this fair. Look at the design. If you don't know that freedom and justice in Ghana was created in 1957, then you don't know. So put the name of your country, put your flag, make it visible. Make it visible for everyone as you have a walk-in. And there's no one manning the stand. Everybody is talking to their colleagues or on the phone. That's what you want to avoid during the trade fair. Another thing you need to do during the trade fair is go and spy, go and check on your competition. If you're an avocado exporter, this is your competition. If you are a meat exporter, it doesn't matter what you do. Go and have a look. That's why it's important to be two-person. One stay at the stand and one has a look and go and see conferences and find, you know, suppliers and buyers different ways. One of the things you need to be mindful about also is for some trade fairs, not all of them, for some trade fairs, at the end of the trade fair, if you leave your stand and it's dirty, the trade fair organizer may charge you for cleaning it. So it has happened to us in the past. Not all trade fairs do that, but just have an understanding with your stand constructor. So to avoid any of those, additional costs. So we looked at, how to select the right trade fair, the different type of trade fairs, what to do step by step, what not to do. Now the trade fair is over. So you're going back home. But the hardest part of the job is not done. Basically, the hardest part, and one of the hardest part is the follow-up. It's surprising to say, but almost 1% out of 2 do not do the follow-up. You've met important people, interesting contacts. You really need to do the follow-up. Now, how do I do my follow-up once I'm back? What do I need to do? Well, you can keep on posting like those guys. The trade fair is over, but they kept on posting to get the free publicity still going on around their participation to that trade fair. What you need to do is you need to register all the contacts that you have had over the trade fair, in some kind of CRM database, or can be a very simple Excel, but you need to capture that because it may come handy in the future. And it's not because you don't do business right away with one buyer that you may do business in 6 months or the following year. So you need to keep track. Um, you need to debrief your colleagues. If you have colleagues looking after sales, after samples, after new product development, they need to know what you have seen. They would be interested to know what you have seen, the products, the contacts, and what are the next steps. To give you, when I'm talking about creating some kind of system to capture your sales contact, this is an example. It works. I've met this lady, Mabel, in one particular trade fair, and I've met her again and another one. And she remembered because she checked and she had a database. I did not remember. I met her twice, but it looks professional to capture the information like that. And one important thing you need to do is you need to manage expectation, because you may have maybe 50, 60, 40, whatever, good sales prospect that you've met during the fair. You cannot say, I am back on Sunday, on Monday morning, you will have your quote, you will have your samples. No, you have to be realistic. You have to sort it out. What are the immediate actions, immediate business potential, and you need to come back to them. In any case, when you come back to them, you need to choose the right time to do it. It sounds a bit silly, but it's not. Um, if you're a buyer of fresh produce, I was a buyer of fresh produce for supermarkets from 6 a.m. in the morning until noon. I would not take any call from new suppliers because we were doing the daily business. So here are some example of ideal times on when to call, when not to call. There is a lot of, theory behind it. Just try to be practical. But in any case, you need to do a quick call follow-up or email follow-up. You get a lot of bad example of email follow-up. This is some of the email follow-ups I got following trade fair participation. The one on the left-hand side is not even addressed to me. It's addressed to a group of people. Hi, it gets different fonts, different sizes, different colors. It does not look professional. The one on the right-hand side is not even in English. It's in Italian. Well, I don't speak Italian. So that's just a waste of time from that company. So here's a good example that I received. When you do your follow-up, don't write 3 pages email. Nobody reads 3 pages email. Be specific, go to the point. You just say, thank you. Here it has, thanks, the location where we met, the product description, a reference to the website, a question on packaging, branding, volume, Incoterms, logistics, clear contact information, company logo. That's it. You don't need more. This is an example of a good, professional, efficient follow-up email. So whatever you do, whatever means you use for doing your follow-up, the most important thing is that you're doing your follow-up. And follow-up after a trade fair does not end the week after the trade fair. It goes on. It goes on, and you need to keep in touch with them, even though maybe you have not done business right away with the company. Any excuse is a good one. I received that email for New Year this year. Christmas, birthday, beginning of an export season, you're launching a new product, you have a new machine, a new processing pack house, anything, just keep them posted. It doesn't matter if you sold to them or not, keep the information going. So in a nutshell, we looked at the different type of trade fairs, what are the steps for you that you must take in terms of planning, in terms of to have a successful trade fair, what to do, what not to do, how to do your follow-up. This is a summary of the key question that you should answer for your company before before exhibiting, registering to a trade fair. There is no wrong trade fair. The right trade fair is whatever you are interested in and what makes sense with regards to how experienced you are in export and about your product and your product capacity. If you are choosing a virtual trade fair, those are some of the feedback. Basically, the virtual trade fairs we talked about, a third of the people we supported ITC, a third would say, I had poor connectivity or I had to wake up in the middle of the night. It wasn't really good for me. It did not work for me. Another third would say it was fine, but no one came to talk to me virtually. Yes, it's not a physical trade fair where you have a foot traffic. You need to make more effort to go out and contact the other buyers virtually. And then for the last third of the participants, it was really saying, it opened a wider reach type of business opportunities. We talked to buyers that we would not have talked before. It was a great new way of doing business. So this is just to give you some example. My take on the virtual trade fair is it's a good capacity building exercise. It's good to prepare you to, if it's a first participation, to meet face to face afterwards. It's a good practice. Is it worth it? You need to check out the prices. You need to check out if your trade fair is offering it, the one you want to select. And those are 15 most common reasons why companies fail at trade fairs. As we say, maybe it's the wrong exhibition. Maybe there is no clear message. Don't assume buyers know who you are. Maybe you have a strong brand on your domestic market and you are well known. But when you go abroad, maybe they don't know your brand. So you need to do all the efforts you did at the beginning on your domestic market to inform your customer, look for customers. Again, maybe having the wrong people at the booth, people that don't know much about the company. That is a little bit of a waste of money because, as we said, these are expensive exercise to find potential business. And then you need to, close the loop. You need to assess, was it worth it financially in terms of business potential, but also in terms of publicity, promoting your company. Did you meet a new investors, a new technical partner? Those are the questions you should be asking yourself before saying, yes, I want to exhibit again, or I don't want to exhibit, or maybe I want to exhibit to another trade fair. So in a nutshell, that was, the content of the training on participation to trade fair, on how to select. And now I would like, if that's okay, I think Faith, I would like maybe to hear from you if you have any questions, whether on the training, on what we saw. Do not worry too much. We will share the recording. We will share the presentation with you. So if you've missed anything, and then you can either, raise your hand, unmute, or put question in the chat.
We have one hand raised.
Okay, perfect.
Ra I apologize. Soatiana. I don't know if that's how to pronounce your name.
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Frederine Derlot, and thank you so much for your presentation. I'm Soatiana Rajuelizoa. I'm a communication officer and a public relation officer also of COMESA, Federation of Women in Business. It's an organ of COMESA, which is promoting women entrepreneurs. To develop their businesses in a COMESA zone. So we are regrouping 21 countries through 21 chapters. So our chapters are National Association of Women Entrepreneurs. So a trade fair is also an important means for us to promote businesses of women entrepreneurs in the 21 COMESA countries, member states. And we are
Swatiana, your connection is not
organizing 5th edition of in summer. Do you hear? Hello?
Yes, we can. So you're organizing a 5th edition of
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Mrs. Soatiana.
Confirmed trade fair, yes. Yes, so thank you so much, because thanks to your presentation, very interesting and very pertinent presentation. I can share all these key information. It was very, very rich, and as you said, some points seem as very evident as like also like relevant like on common sense, but not at all. I precisely noted the importance of graphification, the planning, the QR code, and to have very organized plan. So thank you so much, Madam. And we wish to continue to exchange with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question from Miss Joy. Joy Sense.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I'm not the right one. Probably I'm listening while driving.
Be careful.
Yes, okay. I've been listening for 1 hour. That's my question, although I'm based in Germany, and I'm the founder of Africa Women in Trade. As we speak right now, actually, I'm driving because I'm coming from the expo, where it's for machinery here in Germany. For
Anuga Food Tech.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just coming from there just like 5 hours. And my question is, as you can hear, I'm going to expo finding, because most of the costs you put there, they're very high. There's no way the Africa Women in Trade or those ones they are able to cover those costs. I know you do support them as ITC, and I've heard about you talking about exhibiting and virtual, which is a very good option. But have you considered also visiting as a delegate? Because visiting as a delegate is also an eye-opener. Without exhibiting is also low cost. And as I say that, because I've been trying also to tell, not have been trying, actually doing it, bringing exhibitors who cannot afford to, first of all, come and see what it is about. If they're looking, their markets are towards Europe, and if they are trade ready. I like the way you shared about all those, whatever you said is actually correct, what you have seen there. But something else I can add on is that, and seeing all the exhibitors showing cases from Africa, and something that has been an eye-opener is putting your certifications on your stand. as a label, so that people know you're certified, you have all this standardization, you're ready to exhibit. This is something I've not seen a lot of African stands, and makes it difficult for buyers to know whether are you ready to exhibit. But for me, the question is, have you considered bringing exhibitors, not only to exhibit because it's very expensive, but to bring them to just visit and see how expos are, because you can also access buyers in that way as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, absolutely. To answer your question on certification, it's not just African exporters. Huh? I work with a lot of countries doing agro-food around the world. Very little show what I do when we have a participation of a delegation. I do preparation training, and this is part of the preparation training, where if they have certification, they should definitely showcase their certification, especially in very demanding market like the European market and so on. To answer your other question on visitors, yes, I had a slide at the beginning about the importance of when you're selecting the fair, you're not sure, or you don't have the right export capacity yet, is to visit the fair as a visitor. In my work, so I support companies in trade fair participation, I train them, and when I had delegations that were not export ready, like you mentioned, Miss Joy, we would go first to the trade fair as a visitor to understand, to see, more as a capacity building exercise, to understand and see what the competition was doing, meeting some buyers to understand the requirements. So that two-step approach, we have done it definitely, and it's really well encouraged. Because there's nothing worse than spending all this money exhibiting at a trade fair and having nothing to sell because it's not the right volume, or it's not the right products, or it's not the right certification. And the idea is really not to, have a step-by-step approach. If you're a small exporter, a small processor, the idea is not to go directly to export to Europe, unless you have a product that's very specific to the European market. The idea is really to maybe try a national trade fair in your country, and then a regional one, and then go up and up. Export is it is a long-term process. You don't wake up one day saying, I'm going to export. It takes a lot of time, effort, and finances also to do that. So yes, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you, Miss Joy, on that.
Any follow-up questions, or we go to the next question? Okay.
I think, yeah, we can go to, if there's a next question.
We have a question in the chat. What does the data show when you compare the physical and virtual trade fairs? What's the client take up on both?
In terms of the results for the exporters, that's what I showed you, a third said difficulty accessing the trade fair, a third said great, but nothing happened, and a third said, well, wonderful, it opened new ways of markets and so on. From the buyer's point of view, it is going to be as for you also, it's going to require more effort, meeting someone online and meeting someone in person.
Okay, Frederine, just hold on, I mute everyone, and then
Yeah, no problem.
you can unmute.
So from the buyer's point of view, it's just step one, like it should be for an exporter. You did not have the luxury to meet the person, in real life, but they will go through the same process. They will check your credential online through social media. They will ask you for a brochure. They will take the same step, but maybe it will take a little bit longer because you've not met in person, and personal interaction is very important, especially in the business world. Yes, I see a question on, yes, don't worry, we're going to share the link, we're going to share the presentation, everything. I'm just looking through the chat. Or maybe Faith, is there any more questions through the chat? I don't see.
No, in the chat, there's no question, but there's a hand up from,
yeah.
Isabel. Isabel, you have your hand up?
Okay, or anyone else? If you have any other question, thank you for Millie and for all the messages saying thank you. Don't hesitate to, share your experience or share questions that you may have.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you so much for the floor. My name is Isabel. I'm participating from Lubumbashi in DRC. I'm just starting a small business, and I feel really honored to take place in this forum. I have a question. I would like to know, as a follow-up since the beginning, speaking of the fair, I can notice that it was mostly the international opinion, and I would like to know, while one preparing for an exhibition, what should be the major idea when you are preparing? Should it be the big selling, or the network? Trying to emphasize to get some more potential buyers, or emphasizing to sell a lot or big quantity?
I think both goes hand in hand. If you go to a trade fair, doesn't matter what trade fair, if it's your local national trade fair or regional or more, you go there with different objective. You go there for selling your current product. If you have volume, then it's selling it. You go there to present. If you have a new product, you go there to present a new product, to meet new potential buyers. So you should not, say I'm going there only to sell this. You have many more opportunities. Just see what kind of request you get. If you get small order for a new product, it's okay. It's good, because as the business grow, and as the business relationship will grow, that small order can become a bigger order. So it's definitely is just keep an open mind, and see what kind of product, and also you are showcasing your product to new buyers, to buyers that you've never met before. So you can see the reaction in terms of the taste, the packaging, the product. So all those feedback will be useful for your future business.
There's Ndak Masak, who said they have a question.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Ndak Masak. You had a question? Okay, while we wait for questions, we would also just like to get your opinion on one question. The question will appear in front of your screen. Would appreciate it if you can answer it.
And then you can still put questions in the chat or unmute or raise your hand as you wish. Or you can share your experience. Don't be shy. And Faith, maybe you want to explain that this is training 1.
Yes, so for all the participants, this is the 7-module training program, and this is the first program. I will share my screen for the full outline. We will share the full program with you.
So we have designed a training program from, here we go, from now until October, especially geared for agri-food businesses like yourself, and then different topics. So today we have done the topic on trade fair preparation, participation. Then in April, we have one on developing your export marketing strategy, export visibility through social media. We have an awareness training on key certification that are relevant to the agro-food processing world. We have one on Export 101, basics of exporting, how to build an export price, looking at Incoterms. We have one on negotiation sales and key buyer questions you are going to get and how to answer them. And then we have a last one on through the African Trade Observatory on tariff, export documentation, rules of origin, etc. So this is step 1, and we will have the opportunity to meet again and to discuss again for any potential questions that you may have on exports, agri-food, and so on. Okay, Faith, do you see any other questions I may have missed in the chat, or are we good?
I don't see any questions. The Q&A, there are no questions. And then also in the chat.
I have my email will be on the, some people are asking me for my email. My email will be on the presentation that we will share. So if you have any follow-up question, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah.
And obviously Faith is your point of contact, and she can help you and guide you also.
Yes, so if you are part of this training, that means you received the email that we sent out. So we will use the same to disseminate further information. So we're going to send the presentation, and also we're going to share the recording, and then also the full program with the registration links that we shared. So you will have access to the training program and the links. And in the Zoom link for registration, my email is there. So for any follow-up questions that you may have, I will be able to respond.
Okay, well,
yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention and your question. Again, we will share everything. Faith, any last word or any last comments?
No, not for the moment. Yeah, no, not for the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wishing you a good afternoon. And